What's up, guys? Welcome to Teewhy Talk, where we talk about the real, and the real is what I'm getting ready to spill. Now, before we get into this podcast, I want to make sure you subscribe wherever you're listening from, whether it's Anchor, Apple, Spotify, or YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to the Teewhy Talk podcast. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up and interact with me in the comment sections. Be sure to check out the description. There's a lot of links in there to a lot of other content and anything you may need help with. Now, let's get into this podcast. Okay. This is such a very interesting episode. I hope you guys can really enjoy the message today. I hope I can keep your attention throughout the whole podcast, whether you're listening in through whatever device or you're watching from whatever device. Please stay tuned into this message. It is very amazing. Okay, so the title will be What I Learned from the Book of Jeremiah. And we're talking about the remnant of Judah. So to give you a little backstory of what's going on, we have the people of Judah being exiled into the Babylonians' hand. So imagine yourself in America and the Chinese government come and just take, people. But the king of Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar, left some people behind, and he appointed one man as a governor over these people, the poorest people in the land, I would say. So we're going to read from that, okay? And we're going to go into the message of this. So just get into the groove with me, guys. This is amazing. I hope you guys really, really learn today. So chapter 40 of Jeremiah, verse 7. The king of Babylon had appointed Gedaliah, which was his name, as governor over the land, and had put him in charge of the men, women, and children who were the poorest in the land and who had not been carried into exile to Babylon. Let's go to verse 11. When all the Jews found out, basically, they heard that the king of Babylon had left a remnant in Judah and had appointed Gedaliah, the son of Gedaliah, the son of Ahikam, the son of Shaphan, as governor over them. They all came back to the land of Judah. So imagine a lot of people around America finding out, hey, we got this person named Donald who's the governor of the land, because the king of China left some people behind. So the people that was left behind, they had their own remnant. And then people were coming over to that land who was in the outer skirts of the cities. Was like, wow, because, the Jews were scattered around the city. So at this point, this is where the story gets very, very interesting. So there's some type of hope. And just to give you another backstory is that the Lord told these people continuous times in the book of Jeremiah, submit to the Babylonian kings and things will work out. Submit to the Babylonian king, because that was their judgment. That was their judgment from the Lord, because they were disobeying him. They were worshiping idols. It was so many things they were doing. So the Lord said, submit to the Babylonian king and things will go well with you. He also called Nebuchadnezzar, which is the Babylonian king, his servant. Okay. And that is very interesting, but that's something we'll talk about in another podcast. But he says, submit to his servant, the Babylonian king, and things will go well. But hey, the people didn't want to submit. They thought that the prophecy was wrong. They thought, hey, you're prophesying against us. You aren't supposed to say good things. But hey, when somebody's telling you the truth, what the Lord has spoken, we really have to listen. So to continue on, the man Gedaliah, who was the governor of the remnant that was left behind, got word that someone was trying to kill him. The someone is really not that essential right now. I would say he's essential to the whole context, but right now, this is not the point of the story I'm trying to get you to comprehend. So he got word that someone was trying to kill him. He said, nah, I don't believe you, basically. And he ended up dying. So the governor who was once over this land in America, really inside of this Bible, we're talking about Judah. But I just want you guys to understand. So the governor is now killed. What are you to do? What are you to do? So the people are like freaking out. They don't know what's going on. They just see disaster. They see so many things going wrong. They don't know what to do. Okay, so Chapter 42, the people go to Jeremiah the prophet because he hears from God. He actually has a relationship with the Lord. So they went to him and they said, please hear our petition and pray to the Lord your God for his entire remnant. For as you now see, though we were once many, now only a few are left. Pray that the Lord your God will tell us where we should go and what we should do. So Jeremiah said, I heard you. I will certainly pray to the Lord. as you have requested. I will tell you everything the Lord says, and I will keep nothing back from you. So Jeremiah, of course, took it to the Lord. So 10 days later, the word of the Lord came back to Jeremiah. But before we get into the word, let me tell you something that they said before Jeremiah got the word. They said, may the Lord be a true and faithful witness against us if we do not act in accordance with everything the Lord your God sends you to tell us, whether it is favorable or unfavorable. We will obey the Lord your God to whom we are sending you, so that it will go well with us. For we will obey the Lord your God, our God. Okay? So they said they're going to obey. No matter what the word is, they say they're going to obey. Okay. Sounds like us plenty of times. We say, Lord, I'll do it. I'll do your will. Yes, I will do your will. I'm going to obey you. So the word of the Lord came to Jeremiah 10 days later. By the way, guys, Jeremiah, 10 days. Sometimes we expect our answer the next day, but it was 10 days. Sometimes you wait longer. Okay. So this is what the Lord told them. He said, this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, to whom you sent me to present your petition, says, if you stay in this land, I will build you up and not tear you down. I will plant you and not uproot you. For I have relented concerning the disaster I have inflicted on you. Do not be afraid of the king of Babylon, whom you now fear. Don't be afraid of the king of Babylon. So the people in America, do not be afraid of the Chinese government. Do not be afraid, declares the Lord, for I am with you and will save you and deliver you from his hands. I will show you compassion so that he will have compassion on you and restore you to your land. If we don't know anything, we know that God knows everything, and he can actually touch someone's hearts. So they were looking at the Babylonian king and everything that just happened, and they thinking it's the end of the world. But God clearly said, I will show you compassion so that he will have compassion on you and restore you to your land. Not to mention, he called Nebuchadnezzar his servant plenty of times inside of the book of Jeremiah. That's a whole nother podcast. And I'm just so interested in that, because a lot of people would say, this person not being used by God, that person not being used by God. But Nebuchadnezzar was called the Lord's servant. Regardless of his background, he was from Babylon, confusion, but he was called the Lord's servant. So the Lord continued to say, however, if you say we will not stay in this land, because he made it clear he wants them to stay, trust in him, he will have compassion on them. So he said, if you say we will not stay in this land, and so disobey the Lord your God, and if you say, no, we will go and live in Egypt, keep in mind, guys, the Lord delivered them from Egypt years and years and years ago. And it's something about us always wanting to go back to what the Lord delivered us from. So he said, sorry guys, if you guys see my pet flies, for those of you who are watching on YouTube. So he said, no, we will go and live in Egypt, where we will not see war or hear the trumpet or be hungry for bread. Then hear the word of the Lord, you remnant of Judah. This is what the Lord Almighty, the God of Israel, says. If you are determined to go to Egypt and you go to settle there, then the sword you fear will overtake you there, and the famine you dread will follow you into Egypt, and there you would die. So they think about going back to Egypt because they're like, wow, I can't go back to, they don't know what's going on. There's a lot of confusion going on in their land right now. It's a lot of things happening, and they want to go back to Egypt because they're scared. And they say, okay, at least there's food in Egypt. So to put this in a natural, I'm going to hold off on that part. That part is real good. So keep listening, guys. For those of you listening and watching, make sure you keep listening, okay? Now, Jeremiah made this very clear to the people. He said, remnant of Judah, the Lord has told you, do not go to Egypt. Be sure of this. I warn you today that you made a fatal mistake when you sent me to the Lord your God and said, pray to the Lord our God for us. Tell us everything he says, and we will do. He said, I have told you today, but you still have not obeyed the Lord your God and all he sent me to tell you. So now be sure of this. You will die by the sword, famine, and plague in the place where you want to go settle. So when Jeremiah finished telling all the people what the Lord had said, Azariah and Johanan and all the arrogant men said to Jeremiah, matter of fact, let me go put some respect on their names. Azariah, son of Hoshiah, and Johanan, son of Kareah, and all the arrogant men said to Jeremiah, You are lying. The Lord our God has not sent you to say, you must not go to Egypt to settle there. So first you went to the prophet because you know that he inquired of the Lord. Then he told you what the Lord said. And then you say the prophet is lying, okay? And then he also said, I will send my servant. This is what the Lord said. I will send my servant Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, and I will set his throne over these stones I have buried here. He will spread his royal canopy over them. He will come and attack Egypt, bringing death to those destined for death, captivity to those destined for captivity, and the sword to those destined for the sword. Okay, so it's a lot to unpack here, but just keep following along with me, okay? I want to point out something to you guys, and this is it. We as humans tend to want to go back to Egypt. The people, the remnant of Judah, wanted to go back to Egypt, but they forgot that when they was in Egypt, they were enslaved. They went through so much in Egypt. The Lord delivered them, and now they want to go back because they're fighting troubles in their life right now. It's a human mentality. But I want to just tell you that Egypt is not just a place, but it's a mentality. You went back to Egypt. God delivered you from whatever sin you was struggling with, anything you was battling with. And because things got tough, you went back to the thing that felt like it was comfortable. But in reality, you knew that when you was in that situation, you wasn't comforted at all. That Egypt mindset, that slave-like mentality, being enslaved to sin. We have that instinct as a human to go back to something that actually hurt us. And the Lord remembers that you don't want to go to Egypt. He told them specifically, do not go back to Egypt. Just trust in me. So whoever listening to this right now, whatever you're going through, don't go back to Egypt. Just trust in the Lord Most High. Stick through whatever you're going through. Don't go back to Egypt. So that's part of my message right there. Do not go back to Egypt. These people wanted to go back to the very thing that was enslaving their ancestors at one point, the very thing that was hurting them at one point. And the Lord reminded them that the very thing that you are scared of right now is going to happen if you go back. So if we go back to our wicked ways, our wicked mentality, the very thing that we're trying to cope from is going to happen. Just to put it in a perspective, that doesn't necessarily have to be true. But let's say you was a prostitute and you used to always, or you was a dancer, you used to dance to make money. The Lord delivered you from that. And right now your bill's coming up. He's telling you, trust in me. Trust in me that I will provide for your bills. And then you say, you know what? I'm just going to go do it one night only. And you do that one night only. And then you end up going broke either way. Because the Lord say, in his word, the very thing that you are trying to get away from will come upon you if you go back to Egypt. And though he's not talking about a specific stripper, but that person can whoever used to dance right now or was delivered from any sin, I'm pretty sure you can resonate with Egypt if you go back to Egypt. Right now, we just got to really trust in him. All right. And then, all right, people. So to continue, let's go to Exodus chapter 13, verse 17. When Pharaoh finally let the people go, and this is way before Jeremiah, like years and years before Jeremiah. This is when God first was delivering his people from Egypt, and Moses led them out of Egypt into the, heading towards the promised land, because we know he wasn't allowed to enter it. So when Pharaoh finally let the people go, God did not lead them along the main road that runs through Philistine territory. Even though that was the shortest route to the promised land, God said if the people are faced with a battle, they might change their minds and return back to where? Egypt. So God knows our mind. He knows everything about us. He knows it's a human instinct for us to say, you know what? I'm just going to return back to what I know. I'm going to return back to where I was just in bondage. And he took them the longer route. As we continue, matter of fact, let's continue. It says, so God led them in a roundabout way through the wilderness toward the Red Sea. Thus the Israelites left Egypt like an army ready for battle. So that just points out a lot right there, guys, that he knows that if we face with some type of trouble, trial, we tend to run to sin. I don't know about y'all, but me personally, when I'm under a lot of stress, that's when I'm most prone to sin. That's when I'm most vulnerable to sin. When I'm feeling stressed, when I'm going through something, because you feel like it's acceptable and it's not. You want to run back to something that doesn't comfort you. It feels comforting at that time, but it's really not good for you. It's holding you in bondage. And we see this in the Bible, in the book of Jeremiah, where these people inquired. They asked God, what should we do? We're going to obey you. God tells them what to do. Just stay in the land, where I planted you. And they continue to say, you know what? I'm not going to believe this. And they continue to go back to Egypt. And they forgot that this is the point that I want to make to you guys today, tonight, this evening, this afternoon, whenever you're listening. They forgot all the troubles they went through because of Egypt. They forgot the Pharaoh wouldn't let their ancestors go. They forgot that everything was happening and Egypt was their enemy. So in the time of trouble, we tend to run to the enemy. Why would we run to the enemy? First, they ran to God. They did the right thing by asking him, what should we do? But then Jeremiah warned you, you should never did that, because he knew they wasn't going to obey. So if they were going to walk in obedience, you did the right thing. But if you're going to disobey, why even go to the Lord? So they took it upon themselves after hearing the word when the Lord said, do not go back to Egypt. How many of y'all done went back to Egypt? If you listening, just say I. If you listening, you went back to Egypt, give this video a thumbs up. If you listening, you went back to Egypt, send this to one of your friends who went back to Egypt, who might be in Egypt right now, and you want them to come back to the promised land, okay? I done been to Egypt before. God delivered me from Egypt. I done went back to Egypt. We all done did something, went back to Egypt, went back to a mentality of thinking, went back to a way of life that God delivered us from, went back to a sin that God delivered us from. And it's so clear that we shouldn't go back to Egypt. So that's the message right here that I want to give out to you guys. Do not go back to Egypt. Do not go back to Egypt, no matter how bad it seems. Just wait on the Lord. Do not go back to Egypt, where you were enslaved, where you were in bondage, where the Pharaoh was evil. The Pharaoh, think about it, guys. The Pharaoh was wicked. He had a wicked and a cold heart, a hard heart. And he was the Pharaoh, meaning he's the king of Egypt. So he rules that whole land. So you're underneath the authority of someone who's wicked. Do not go back to Egypt, where you're underneath the authority of the wicked one, the enemy, Satan. Okay? Y'all following me? Yes, Egypt is a physical place, but just think of it as a mentality right now. Think of it as a place where you don't want to be, because God doesn't want us to be in Egypt. He constantly told his people, don't go back to Egypt. 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 And yes, this is Old Testament right here that we're reading. But if we take the time out to think Old Testament, New Testament, going back to your fleshly ways, going back to your sinful ways, it's just like the Old Testament Israelites going back to Judah. It's just like the Old Testament Israelites going back to what hurt them. And I really like the analogy of the stripper, the dancer, who really went back to the strip club when she could have just waited. And now she had a one night only, probably didn't make no money, or she went there, made money, got robbed, and everything she didn't want to happen, it just didn't work out when she could have just waited. This is a lesson for all of us. I'm speaking to you, speaking to me, speak to everybody listening. Don't go back to Egypt. I know it's hard. You might be in a situation where it's rough, like the people in the Remnant of Judah. They see the Babylonian king. But the great thing is they actually heard from God. Sometimes we just be sitting there waiting like, God. And he does be speaking. Sometimes we just don't listen. But they heard from him. And they had that word. See, the thing is, his word is reassurance. What he says is assurance, like that is going to happen. What he says is like not even a possibility. It's a guarantee. We just have to do our part and obey. And because we don't take his word as assurance, what happens is we just be like, okay, I can't trust it. I can't trust it. And then we go back to Egypt. When in reality, we could have said, well, he said if we stay here, everything's going to be okay. I'm going to take that word and I'm going to just stay here. And that's the hardest part to do, to just stay, wait, and trust. But that's literally all he asked them to do. Just stay in the land. And they weren't the people that were exiled. He said, I will have compassion on you. Though everybody was exiled, they weren't the people who actually left went underneath Nebuchadnezzar. They were the remnant that was left behind. And not only that, their land was going to flourish. I believe so. So just think about that, guys. Think about what you learned today. If you want to go back and read, we took from the book of Jeremiah, chapters 40 through, I believe, 43. And we hopped inside of Exodus, I believe, chapter 13. Go back and read those scriptures. Let the Holy Spirit speak to you. Sorry, guys. But on that note, this is Teewhy Talk. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe to this channel. For those of you watching on YouTube, subscribe on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Make sure you stay tuned for my next episode. Come on, it's 2022. We're going to keep pushing. And 2 words I have for you guys is move forward in wisdom and walk in obedience. This Teewhy Talk. I'm out, and I'm going to talk with y'all later.